Whenever you're ready, Keith.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get started here and call the Transportation Technical Coordinating Committee meeting on Wednesday, April 13th, 2022. Call to order. Andy, would you do the roll call, please?
Yes, I will. Thank you all for joining us today. From Bullitt County, I know we have Keith Griffey. Anybody else from the Bullitt County?
Mayor Hockenberry.
Mayor?
Yes.
How about from Charlestown, City of Charlestown? Tubby on the line. How about from J-Town?
Matt Mignetti.
Matt Mignetti is here. Thanks, Matt, for joining us. Jeffersonville? Mount Washington, I believe Mayor Armstrong was going to be maybe late. Is that what we heard?
Yes, he's trying to get in.
All right, we'll hope to see him shortly. Anybody from New Albany?
This is Larry. I'm here.
Hey, Larry. There you are. Thanks for joining us, Larry. St. Matthews, I think I saw Keenan. Keenan, you out there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Keenan. How about Clark County? Boyd County? IDEM? NDOT?
Carly Metcalf.
Carly? Jefferson Riverport? Gil, thank you for joining us today. How about Kentucky DAQ? Who do we have from KYTC online? I think I saw several.
Tracy Lovell, District 5, Project Development.
Tracy? Oh, Tom. I see you, Tom, or I see your name, Tom. That's all we've got. Thank you all for joining us. Moving on, APCD. We have a couple from APCD, several even. Thank you all for joining us. Who's on the line?
Got Michelle.
Michelle.
Craig.
Got Greg. I got Byron.
Lynch.
Might even get a special treat from D. Lynch. Yeah, D. Lynch is there too. Thank you all for joining us. You'll hear more from them later. How about from Louisville Metro? Let's start with Louisville Metro Economic Development.
Mike King.
Hey, Mike. Who else do we have from Metro? We've got Dirk's in the room. Who else?
Amanda Duffridge here.
Amanda? Yep. Anybody from the airport? Oldham County? I see one Jim. Just one?
Jim Silverman here. Yeah.
Two Jims.
Jims. Welcome.
Thank you.
Who else?
Isidro.
Isidro joined us. Thank you for joining us, Isidro from KYTC. Port of Indiana. TARC Accessibility Advisory Council.
That's me. It's Allie.
Hi, Allie. How about Clarksville? Yeah, Clarksville. And last but certainly not least, TARC. There's Aida. Saw your lips move.
Everyone.
Hi.
Brian Dixon also joined.
Oh, Brian Dixon joined us. Thank you, Brian, for joining us as well. So good. Glad to see the attendance is still going strong. Like I told the TPC last month, I believe that, you know, we don't cancel the meetings lightly. If we don't have an agenda that we think is worthwhile, we're not going to have a meeting because we don't want to waste everybody's time. So thank you all for joining us, and we'll try to live up to our end of that bargain here to get there. So Keith, turn that for him.
All right. We need a action on the minutes from the February 2022 meeting. I'm hoping everybody's reviewed those. Is there a motion to approve the minutes?
Motion approved.
Thank you.
Second.
We've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Okay, that will
Aye.
move on. Thank you all. Andy, you're up with the committee report.
Yes, sir. We've got, since we missed March TTCC, I've got 2 TPC reports to do. So we'll go over just real briefly what we went over at the February 24th TPC meeting and the March 24th TPC meeting. Back in February, Greg Burris provided us with just like at TTCC that month, the public participation plan update. That was approved. Nick brought to us the Amendment 6 of the TIP and MTP. We also had a special presentation from Federal Highway Administration staff. In particular, Bo Dave Boris was here with a whole contingent of Federal Highway staff from their Kentucky division to talk about the new infrastructure bill, so that was good to hear from them. We also had a couple other items involving our performance management plan and what we call our coordinated plan. So that was the February TPC meeting. A couple weeks ago in March 24th, one of the things we did at that meeting that was unique, it's worth pointing out, is kind of did a reset on the TPC's roles and responsibilities. We got a lot of new staff at KIPTA, certainly, but also new TPC members. And so we just wanted to reset everybody's mindset on what the TPC was here to do, what they're designated to do, the amount of the different things that the dollars thing, if nothing else, the dollars they have control of that are controlled in this room, that are not controlled in Frankfort, they are not controlled in Indianapolis, they're controlled in this room and on the Zoom room, if you will, too. So we wanted to reset that playing field there, among other things. And there'll be a follow-up here in a minute for the TTCC version of that, much briefer, much more brief. So I thought that went pretty well. And if anybody has any questions about that, we'll have that. We have that presentation and some of the information on there if anybody's ever interested, and it'll be a part of early next. Once there's some new elected officials around the region, we'll do some new elected official training, and it'll be a big part of that too. I'm certain it will be. So hopefully those that were in attendance learned something there. We also announced that there's going to be some, as I sent out to the emails of this entire group and the TPC, some metropolitan planning funds that are going to be made available for the local government to pursue those dollars to do planning studies in the upcoming fiscal year. More on that in a minute. We've got that on today's agenda as well. We heard a presentation from Mike Sewell. Mike Sewell, as many of you all know, is from Gresham Smith. Mike Sewell is an expert on complete street topics, concepts. He's really sharp, complete streets engineer. So Mike Sewell gave the committee a presentation. And then also, we took to them the draft version of our UPWP, Unified Planning Work Program, and I'll be taking the final version to them later this month. That, for those that don't know, that is what an MPO is required to put together for the upcoming fiscal year in terms of the work that we're going to do, how we're going to pay for it, and the amount of resources we're going to put toward it. So that'll be approved. The final version will be approved by the TPC here in a few weeks. So that concludes my report.
All right, thank you, Andy. Greg, public comments?
Yes.
Do we have any?
I did not see any public comments in the chat box, and we did not receive any comments prior to the meeting, and I don't see anybody in the room with the public here, so don't believe we have anything for this one.
Okay, that's great. Thank you, sir. Air quality update, and this is the staff of Louisville Metro Air Pollution Control District, and I think you all are doing this remotely. Do we have?
We are. I will share my screen and do some driving, but we're going to tag team this presentation for you all here today. So let me make sure I do the first step right. Okay. You all see that okay? Looking good?
Yep,
all right.
We've got it.
Great. Good morning. I'm Michelle King. I am the Director of Program Planning and Executive Administrator at the Air Pollution Control District here in Louisville. And we're going to welcome you to the air quality portion of today's meeting. And we're going to see if we can't start out with a little bit of an overview for you today. Let's see. There we go. I'm going to go through a little bit of information about our National Ambient Air Quality Standards. I think most of you are familiar. Let's see if I can get your faces off my screen so I can see the slide. There we go. Are familiar with these standards, or as we call them, NAAQS. Our area is currently designated in attainment with all of these standards except for ozone, which has been the subject of our conformity determinations for many years. So I know we've all had lots of discussion around ozone, especially over these last couple of years when we've begun fulfilling requirement to, again, determine conformity with our transportation plan and those mobile vehicle emissions budgets. So today, Byron Gary, APCD's regulatory coordinator, is going to provide some updates on that attainment status, including those motor vehicle emissions budgets, or MVEBs, that are set as a result of that designation. Byron's also going to provide a look at the process underway to review the fine particulate standard, which is another pollutant that's been included in our transportation conformity requirements in the relatively recent past. And from there, we're going to switch gears a little. We're going to provide an overview of some of the programs that we will be promoting as we go into ozone season, which began at the beginning of March. And that's going to include an overview of the CARE program, which I hope you are all familiar with. That's something that TTCC has provided a recommendation for funding of to both the Indiana side through the CMAQ program, and as well as the KYTC side through our STBG funds. So Dee Lynch is going to bring us a look at that. She's our CARE program coordinator, and I think a familiar face to many of you here. And lastly, I'm just going to finish us up with a little bit of information about air quality alerts that you might see through this ozone season, and then how we can find and share that information to protect our health and that of our communities. So with that, Byron, I'm going to hand this over to you.
So yeah, the conformity issue that is obviously top of mind for us right now is our ozone NAC status. For a little background on the next slide here, just the timeline on what's happened so far. We were designated non-attainment back in June 2018. Conformity requirements kicked in a year after the effective date of that designation, so in August 2019. Been using an interim test since then. We also had to submit a few other preliminary requirements. The attainment deadline was last August, and because attainment is determined on the three most recent complete years of data, the determination was required to be made on 2018 through 2020 data. And next slide, that determination was required to be made by EPA on February 3rd of this year. They missed that deadline and actually just this morning put out a proposed reclassification. They determined we did not make it because in 2018 through 2020, our design value was 0.001 parts per million over the standard. So they have proposed to reclassify the Louisville metro area, Louisville, Kentucky, Indiana non-attainment area from marginal non-attainment to moderate non-attainment for the 2015 ozone standard. When finalized, this will begin the clock on a number of other requirements, including reasonably available control technology and measures, reasonable further progress, another attainment deadline, as well as eventually, if we still fail to attain by that point, kicking back in the VET program potentially. However, next slide, we fortunately have dipped back below the standard. As of the end of last year, we are at 0.069 parts per million, so just below that standard of 0.070. And we are working on our redesignation request along with the Division of Air Quality. That has been submitted to EPA in a pre-draft form. So EPA is taking a sort of informal look at it to raise any red flags and give us any informal comments to try and address them before we actually put that out for public comments. And that should hopefully get back to us from EPA within the next couple of weeks, and we should be going out for a formal public comment period shortly. Before that goes out, or by the time that goes out, I will send out the full redesignation request to the interagency consultation group, which met a few times. But on the next couple slides, I'll go over some of the stuff that you guys will be seeing there. Some of this, the interagency consultation group already saw. So the next slide is just emissions projections for VOCs out to our maintenance year. When we request redesignation, we have to show not only that we're in attainment now, but that we will continue to be in attainment at least 10 years out into the future. So 2035 will be our maintenance year. It was a nice round number, and a year for which we already had mobile projections, so that made the emissions inventory portion easier. The next part is just the same slide, but for NOx. We are also projected to continue to decline in NOx emissions out to 2035. Everybody might have some familiarity with this already, but part of the attainment and maintenance demonstration is setting budgets for on-road emissions. On this slide, Michelle's showing those budgets. And these are based on those emissions projections, but we're allowed to allocate some of that difference between what got us to attainment in 2019 and in 2035, where we're projected to be overall from all sources. And because there is a significant decline there, we were allowed to allocate a portion of that safety margin to our motor vehicle emissions budgets. We proposed allocating a 15% margin of safety. We looked at a number of different factors in doing so. We convened the interagency consultation group, had a couple of really great meetings, got some very thoughtful comments back from Andy and Randy at KIPTA, and addressed those. Ultimately, we decided to stick with the 15% allocations of the safety margin to those MVEBs, and we expect that to be in that pre-hearing formal proposal that we'll put out shortly. Next slide, I believe, is moving on to PM. So particulate matter is one that we're in attainment for now, but has been a problem for us in the past and maybe again in the future. Next slide shows a little bit about what's going on right now. The current annual average standard is set at 12 micrograms per cubic meter. That was set back in 2012. In 2020, EPA decided to retain that previous standard, finding that it was adequate to protect public health. But then in June of last year, they decided, after receiving some requests for reconsideration, to rethink whether or not that was still wise. They subsequently put out a supplement to their science assessment, policy assessment, and the Clean Air Scientific Advisory Council, or Committee rather, KSAC, just last month, reported back to EPA on the ISA and policy assessment. EPA has said that they intend to make a determination to put out a proposal on whether to retain that or whether upon further reconsideration, they're going to change the standard sometime this summer, and they are still on track, they tell us, to put forward a final determination by spring of next year. And next slide might give some sort of quick glimpse of, before going on to the next part, just what we might end up seeing. The policy assessment from EPA, so this is EPA staff's review of the science and sort of trying to bridge that into policy and what they think should be done. The current annual standard of 12 micrograms per cubic meter could go as low as 10 micrograms, or even as low as 8 or lower than 10, depending on what weight you give to different science assessments, different effects, and different priorities policy-wise. The EPA staff did recommend retaining the 24-hour standard, which we traditionally have had less trouble attaining, and is set at 35 micrograms per cubic meter within a 24-hour period, so trying to avoid those high peaks. Next page, the KSAC, which is a chartered committee convened by EPA of outside experts, took a look at those EPA staff reports, and the majority of them actually said between 8 and 10 micrograms per cubic meter would be appropriate. A minority of the members said that somewhere between 10 and 11, but all of them thought that somewhere below 12 would be appropriate. And they actually took a look at the 24-hour standard and said that they thought a lower range might be appropriate for that. The majority of them anyway. Minority thought that EPA was right to retain it. Next slide shows where we may end up being with this. So right now we are under the 12 microgram per cubic meter standard, but depending on where that is set, based on the feedback from the policy assessment in KSAC, if it is set at 10 or lower, we currently would not be in attainment for the PM standards. So we would fall back into non-attainment. So this could happen as early as the end of 2023. It's typically a little longer after that before EPA makes determinations, but it would probably at least take into account this year's monitoring data, it sounds like. So another big reason to try and keep emissions down over this coming year. And I think that's all on the NAC status, but I just wanted to give a quick plug for a program that we're working on here at the district. No, you're good. Exactly right. The Air Quality Action Partners program is something that we rolled out last year by encouraging all of our stationary sources to sign up to make commitments to meet some of these MPSG recommendations. Some of you may have participated in the MPSG, mostly on the mobile source committee, but out of the point source committee, there were several recommendations that the district should encourage action and recognize our sources for taking action to avoid or lower emissions, particularly on air quality alert days. This is sort of a summary of 3 of those point committee recommendations. And on the next slide, signups for 2022 have started now. Last year was the first year. We started with just our stationary sources, encouraging them to sign up. But we sent out an announcement this year on April 1st, encouraging folks to sign up by April 30th via that online form. And this year we are opening it up to all businesses and organizations. There are a lot of things on the form, even just from last year, that anybody could do to help improve air quality here in Louisville. A number of the things that folks here might be interested in included things pertaining to fleet and vehicle emissions, things like committing to fleet turnover, aiming at lower emissions vehicles, as well as signing up to become an idle-free business, which is something that I think Dee might mention here in just a moment. So I'll pass it on to Dee, but just leave you with that, and feel free to spread the word. Those links are in the presentation there. Glad to have pretty much anybody who wants to sign up. So more the barrier. Dee?
Yeah, so Dee Lynch is going to talk. So that ACAPS is a little bit of a outreach effort. Well, not a little bit, a big outreach effort to our businesses, but by far our largest outreach effort to change behavior is our CARE program. Long-standing, very successful. So you all are going to get a preview from Dee of the ozone season outreach from the CARE program this year. Dee, tell me when to advance.
Thank you. Thank you. Go ahead and advance to my first slide. You're getting a little bit of a sneak peek. Our media campaign that will run during ozone season. A few of the parts of this campaign have rolled out, but a few things are still in production. So you're going to get an early look at those things. This is all part of CARE's ongoing year-round outreach efforts, including those idle-free tags that you see in the picture that are provided to at least 95 schools in JCPS. And I think we have like 64,000 of those tags. So this is a sneak peek at our media campaign. We are regional, receiving money through grants from both Kentucky and Indiana. And so obviously we're reaching out to 5 counties. And as Michelle mentioned, we are timing this for ozone season. So you can move to the next slide, please. Okay, so you can see that we're using a variety of media. During the pandemic, digital has been key for reaching people, and we've used social media, Facebook, Instagram. The radio ad is still in production, and our video ad is also in production. You can see some concepts on this slide. The idea behind it is that it's called Care for Tomorrow. We did focus groups in 2021 to kind of help hone our message and make sure that we kind of took the temperature of consumers and young drivers. The world changed a lot in the last couple of years. So getting those findings and figuring out what kind of messages would resonate with people to reduce emissions, improve air quality, and speak to them in a language that really connects with people. kind of the centerpiece of that will be this video ad. It's going to be animated, which is a nice kind of transition. If you've ever looked at the CARE website at healthier.org, it has kind of these colorful animated background to it. There's, little boats and bikes and things moving in it. And it's kind of a serene landscape. The video ad is going to kind of capture that feeling. It's going to start black and white, not with this picture, but something like it with a kind of a Louisville landscape. People are going to be in a car rider line near a school. You're going to see kind of the clouds of emissions, and everything's going to be kind of gray and bleak. And as people make decisions which would affect air quality in a good way, such as turning off their engines or swapping out their mower from a gas-powered mower to an electric mower, then you'll see the clouds kind of come out, move, the sun comes out, the colors come out, and it gradually changes to, a bright, beautiful landscape as seen from the sunny side over in Indiana. You see the kind of the Louisville on the other side. And it's going to kind of visually kind of show what choices people make and how they can affect the air quality. And it should roll out by the end of April. So really looking forward to that. And what I really like about the message is not only is it very visual and it kind of gives kind of that positive drive for people to do something for air quality, but also because it's kind of has that colorful change in it, it will be more, it'll be a message that even if you had the sound off, if you didn't hear anything, you kind of get the message through the drawings. So excited about that. Also excited about getting out to table again at events. We will be sponsoring some Waterfront Wednesdays, and we've invited partners to come out. I know Every Commute Counts is excited to come out. And sustainability through Metro is already talking about coming out to kind of focus a little bit on solar. We can feature our lawn care program. So, hoping everybody stays healthy and happy, and we can have outdoor events again. So that's coming up April 27th should be our first Waterfront Wednesday. And if you want to move to the next slide, please. Okay, this is just one example of some of the digital advertising we've done, and probably the most interesting one. I've gotten calls from around the nation about this. A few years ago, we were kind of an experiment with using Waze, one of the most popular traffic ad. It's crowdsourced. If you're trying to find your way around a city, it'll help you to steer around wrecks, get to where you're going. And it also senses when you've stopped. So if you are stopped and maybe you're sitting in that car rider line or in a drive-through, and you're in the geo-fenced area, which includes the counties that we're part of, that screen might pop up with a little count to 10, car off then. And you may say, oh, I'm too busy, I can't read this right now. There's a little save for later where you can just hit that little button, and later on, the app will remind you, hey, you wanted to go find out more about saving money and not idling so much and helping the air at CARE. So, this is kind of a way of using new technology and with a popular ad, and also, getting that message right in front of people when they're actually engaged in the behavior that we're trying to change. So the other app that we use quite a lot, Phil, you can go ahead. Go ahead to social media. I could talk about this stuff for a while, so you're good to keep me on track. You see a Facebook ad. We also are on Instagram or on Twitter, and any way that we can share information about air quality. Here, the artwork you can see is actually from our website. So it all will look very familiar. And that's kind of important so that, people trust the ads. If you click on something and it takes you to something that looks very different, it's kind of jarring, there should be a smooth transition from these ads. to our actual Health the Air website, where you can read about more things about air quality. And people tend to spend at least a minute looking at the website and getting info from it. And that's actually very, very good. Anything else here? Yes, schools, festivals. It's been difficult to get into schools, no doubt, because of the pandemic. Recently, though, I've been a partner with Brightside, with Metro Solid Waste, with the water company, and several other colleagues who do similar work. We partnered to do a after-school program at Rutherford Elementary, where we were doing guest presentations for a group called the Global Game Changers. And we're going to spin that off into a summer program through Evolve 502, the Backpack League, to do more summer educational programming through JCPS. And we have several things coming up on the calendar. Hope we have good weather and everything really happens the way it should. We've got Tree Fest coming up this Saturday out at Joe Creason Park. Earth Day events are happening at the zoo, and I'll plan to be out there on the Sunday around Earth Day. And I am getting in a couple of schools. There's a picture there from Holy Cross. Not only do they take idle-free signage for their parking lot, where the seniors and juniors like to hang out in the parking lot before school instead of going into the gym where they're supervised. But we tried to do it really safely. We met quickly in the classroom and went out, and everybody checked their tires to make sure they were all at the right pressure, and kind of giving them young drivers some good habits to start out with.
Thank you, Dee. The CARE program is one of those very recognizable pieces of our outreach efforts here. And so that really helps us get the word out very widely about driver behaviors in particular. But one of the other things that the CARE program helps us do is raise awareness around air quality alerts. So these are alerts that are called when the air quality index is forecast to be at a value of 100 or higher. And so earlier at the beginning of the presentation, you saw the chart with all those national ambient air quality standards. The air quality index takes those standards, those levels for 4 criteria pollutants, including ozone and particulate pollution, which are the ones that we typically are most concerned about here in the Louisville region. And it sets all those variable standards across different timeframes, all against a standard scale and color coding. So 100 AQI value corresponds with the National Ambient Air Quality Standard. So here's what you would see with the AQI. On days when the AQI is 50 or below, there's great air quality out there. No one needs to even, give it a second thought, other than to help continue protecting it so we stay good. But also when it gets to that between 50 to 100, we're still meeting the standard. It's still healthy for most people, but unusually sensitive people might want to consider, changing their activities a little bit to reduce their exposure. It isn't until we hit that 100 mark that we start exceeding those national ambient air quality standards. And that's what really is driving our attainment or non-attainment status and all of the policy making and regulatory framework that comes with that designation. But aside from all that regulatory work, there's also things that individuals can do. It's really a public health tool to get the word out about AQI. So these things can be forecast, and we try to do so. Much like the weather, air quality conditions are going to be based on meteorological factors. They're going to be based on the current air quality in the area, but also air quality in the areas upwind from us at any given time, which is a variable situation here in the Ohio River Valley. Some days upwind is in a different direction than in other days. And so our air monitoring staff work closely with the Indiana Department of Environmental Management, and they forecast levels of ozone and fine particulates in our region. Anytime they expect to see that above 100, an air quality alert is going to be issued. We try to do that typically 2 to 3 days out. Sometimes it might come quicker than that, and we won't have as much warning. But the idea there is that having that information in advance is really to protect health. And so that's two ways. One, individuals can reduce their exposure by changing their activities on those days. So it might be a good day to limit outdoor exercise or strenuous activities. You know, a school may decide to have recreation inside in the gym instead of out on the playground that day. You know, people working outside might try to limit their outdoor activities, especially when it's ozone driven later in the day when ozone levels are rising. Ozone is created in the presence of sunlight, and that happens faster with heat. So later in the day, we've had more hours of sunlight, a little hotter. That's when we get that ozone levels pretty high. So people can make some adjustments. They also can monitor their health conditions. And that's especially important for folks with asthma or COPD, or who are caregivers of those with asthma or COPD. So they can be on the watch for those symptoms, have their rescue medications at hand. But importantly, we also want to change behavior on the side of reducing emissions. So there are things that we can do as individuals and as businesses or as organizations that can reduce polluting activities on those days and hopefully actually make a difference in whether we're exceeding that standard that day and the AQI can stay below 100. So that might be things like delaying mowing, other gas-powered landscape maintenance activities, change some habits to reduce driving. So maybe a good day to car or van pull, CU, every commute counts. Maybe a good time to take transit. TARC's always our friend here. Maybe it's a good day to say, you know what, we're going to meet virtually instead of all getting in our cars and going to a central location. That seemed a little bit crazier a couple of years ago. Nowadays, it's just so status quo, right? But any of those kind of activities that you can delay. And I really wanted to point that out because, you know, most of us around the table here are government officials and work in the transportation arena. And this is something that, you know, we may be able to do with our own organizations. And it's also something that we can help get the word out through our own networks to make sure our various communities have this information. So where can we get those air quality alerts? Well, we've got a number of ways. So we've got email alerts, you've got an APCD notification list. CARE puts this information out through their CARE network. So they've got lots of signups there. So there's some options if you want to look through email. If you're a social media follower, we've got APCD social media feeds. We've got the CARE social media feeds. I've jokingly said we're not on TikTok yet, but if somebody comes up with the air quality alert TikTok dance, I really want to see it. We'll ask Andy to do that as a special guest on our TikTok feed. I'm sure you'll be great. And then there's also some options like EnviroFlash, which is nationwide. So if you travel a lot, that's a great tool to know about because then you can look for air quality alerts in the area that you're traveling to. And now more than ever, meteorologists really try to get this information into the weather forecast. So just watching the local news, you will see when we call air quality alerts, the team here gets that information out to our media and they spread it out throughout the community and even in the weather app. So you're on the Weather Channel or Weather Underground, those things. You can find air quality information everywhere. It's just a matter of understanding what that AQI means. And so this is something that, you know, we can get information out about. It's really just a health-based tool for us and our communities to know more about. So with that, kind of come to the end here. And if we've got, you know, any questions, we're happy to field them. There was a lot of information.
All right, thanks, Michelle. Are there any questions from anybody remote or here in the room?
If there aren't any questions, I'll take the opportunity to say thank you to APCD for your partnership, for doing the presentation first and foremost. But for those in the room and on the Zoom call that don't know, APCD, when we do an amendment of our long-range plan and TIP, APCD is the agency that runs the air quality model for the entire region. It's not just a Louisville Metro-focused thing. And so we appreciate that partnership and what they do for the region in that regard. And I don't know that, I hope you all knew that already. I hope I'm preaching to the choir, but they are a great regional partner of this agency. And for that matter, at our last federal certification review, our federal partners gave us some kudos. That partnership, that APCD and KIPTA partnership was something that we got some kudos for. So we are very
Give
happy.
a shout out to Craig and Randy on that too. They work so well together.
Absolutely. So, thank you all again.
Yeah, thank you very much. That was very well done. Is there any way the presentation you did that we can get that out to other folks?
So I can remove that from, because we are broadcasting live, and we're streaming over YouTube. What I've done in the past with presentations, I remove that presentation separately, and then we can post that out on our social media channels and get that out so everybody can kind of see just the presentation itself instead of watching the entire meeting.
Right. I think that'd be a great, and then we can kind of drive people toward that as well.
And if anybody would like to get a PDF of that, you can definitely just reach out to me. If, it's got lots of hyperlinks in there. So if you want to do a little deeper dive, that may be helpful to be able to click right in. So just reach out, michelle.king@louisvilleky.gov. Or if you don't remember that, just air@louisvilleky.gov. We're easy.
All right. Any other questions? Anybody? All right. I guess we'll move on. Thanks again, Michelle. Thank you all for the presentation. Andy, the coordinating committee future focus.
All right. So as I mentioned in the TPC report a few minutes ago, at last month's TPC meeting, we did Elizabeth, Nick, and myself, we teamed up, tag team on a presentation of that reset that I called it a minute ago, where we, maybe preached to the choir a little bit, but also probably reset what the expectations are of the TPC, okay? And so we want to piggyback on that a little bit, not a lot. It won't be. We're not going to do a 20-minute presentation or however long that took. I promise you that. We're just going to do some slides here. But to get some feedback from this committee, okay? And so for those online, maybe on your other screen, or those in the room on your smartphones, you want to get on slido.com. It's going to be like a Menti. You probably use Menti, and you'll need that code. So while I'm talking, be sure to log into that. But what we're just going to do today is just get a little bit of feedback from those in this room and on the Zoom call about what you all would like to see more of, what you want to hear more of, and in part it can be a conversation starter too. What are the resources you all need to help you be better TTCC members? Do you want to hear from the feds? Do you want to hear from us? Do you want to hear from APCDs of the world? Who do we need to bring in? What's the top subject matter? So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Elizabeth, and she's going to walk us through this process.
That'll be super quick. So if you can go to slido.com, enter in that 6-digit code. Greg, do you want to go ahead and go to the next slide? So the first question we would like to know is, what do y'all want to hear about? When we're in this room, we always have action items that we need response from, and we have some informational items that we love to bring to you all. But what else do you want to hear about? You'll see in that list when you go to that website, we have 7 options, and you could pick all that apply. Maybe pick at least 3 to give us a good idea of what you all would like to prioritize. So we have anything from the federal initiatives that are coming with the new bill, local projects and initiatives statewide. We can do more reporting on projects that are in the TIP, maybe their performance or their funding distribution. We can do more frequent staff reports about our activities, our almost like progress updates, if y'all are interested in that. We can also do staff reports on planning trends, best practices that we've seen in our research every day. So go ahead and pick a couple and a couple more seconds, and we'll move on to the next question.
Sick of hearing from us.
Don't you find our experts? I would much rather hear from the experts.
Yeah, me too.
Okay, we'll go on to the next question. So this is asking what initiatives you all would like to prioritize. We're looking at if you look at the UPWP, there are activities and initiatives that we have to do, and they're in there. But we do have the leverage to prioritize some things over others. So we could, for example, do more sponsor-led local planning studies with our PL funds. Alternately, we could do more regional planning studies with those PL funds. We could look into kind of putting a safety spin on every single planning activity that we are involved with. You know, new technology and electric vehicle infrastructure that's coming down the pipeline, that could be a focus for us. So if you can choose, again, 1, 2, 3, or more, whatever you all think is something that you would like to prioritize with this committee. A couple more seconds, and then that's all that I had. Very quick. All those cleaning. Yes.
So again, that's all we have for this one. Then we'll take this as feedback, and it's pretty good feedback, and y'all don't want to hear from KIPTA staff, and that's okay.
Well, I think what that meant is that you all do such a great
Oh,
job.
okay.
We don't have to have more of that.
Okay,
We
all right.
do just the right amount.
Yeah, perfect.
No, he was,
Half full or half empty, you know?
he's interpreting correctly.
All right,
That was my spin.
okay, I appreciate that. Yeah, that's all we have on that agenda item, so that,
All right, thank you. And I like the thing where we can have the interactive.
all right, we'll do more of that.
I think that's really.
We'll make that a part of what we do.
that's a cool thing to
It's
do.
fun.
Yeah,
Nothing else that gets people,
yeah.
engaged.
Yeah.
So we'll add a little bit of that here or there.
All right, Elizabeth, you are up with Connecting Kentuckiana, 2050.
All right, so I'm here today to ask for a working group to discuss the project evaluation process that we are revamping for this MTP. So this group, I imagine, will review a staff recommendation, get a little bit into the nitty-gritty about points and how we are really ranking and evaluating projects. We do have a set of criteria that staff are developing. We would like some feedback on that as well. So I would like people who both were involved last time and kind of saw that process, but maybe also people who weren't involved and have a fresh take on project evaluation for the MTP. Ideally, this is also a group that covers the entire geographical region. So I'll take a couple names, but then I do have action too to create.
So we want to see if we got any volunteers for this. How many people are you thinking of working? Because we've all been on working groups before, and you get so many people.
I'd say
You don't have
5 to
enough.
7.
How many?
5 to 7.
5 to 7, okay.
Yeah.
We want to spread that among.
Ideally, at least 1 or 2 representatives from Indiana, and the Kentucky County.
Well, we want to see if anybody wants to volunteer.
I'm in.
I'm looking over there. I think that would be the first.
I'm in too.
Okay.
Thank you, Miss.
And I'll go on.
Okay.
Now we need some Indiana folks.
I think Jim Urban as well.
Oh, yeah,
I'll
Jim.
do it. Yeah. Sure.
Do we have any Indiana folks here?
Larry Summers.
Mike King is chiming in, he'll volunteer.
Okay, good.
Mike's at Metro, also, so, do we have any Indiana?
We probably need more Metro anyway.
We need someone from Indiana. Yeah. And I can reach out after the meeting as well, if they're not here today.
Yeah, the whole, as you'll hear a little bit from Nick as usual, the framework's so different in Indiana, and I think that just the idea of having Indiana folks on this it can't hurt. It's gotta help out, actually.
But so I think we've got enough from this side of the river. Would we agree?
And I'll reach out afterwards.
And if you can reach out to the Indiana folks, I mean.
Elizabeth, you wanna talk about what it will entail in terms of timing?
Oh, yes, thank you. I imagine that we will meet no more than 2 times. Hopefully, we can knock it out in one session. In person, the end of April, we'll just get together in this room. I'll send out a meeting request, get a couple of dates from the group once I have all the names. But we anticipate taking this to May TPCC and TPC for approval. So it's kind of a fast turnaround.
You need action on,
Yeah, just to form the working group.
okay. Got that, but is there a motion to form this working group that we've already formed?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
All right, we've got a motion and a second. All in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, thank you.
Tom,
I
also
see
chime in.
that, yeah.
So, thank you, Tom.
Thank you.
Valerie.
Hey, everyone. As part of our 2050 Connecting Kentuckiana update, us at KIPTA, we've been working on a socioeconomic update for our regional travel model. This update will include projections for 2050 of employment, population, and household levels. We had a little bit of an obstacle to overcome this round of the socioeconomic update because of the main census product for 2020 being delayed, and we had to resort to a new option or method of calculating our forecast. So this year we are projecting growth in areas of TAZs, which are nested block groups in each county. And each TAZ will show our projected growth in employment, household levels, and population. And we will be reaching out to our county members pretty soon, most likely at the end of the month. We are asking for your input on our projections, since you all are even better experts of your areas on the micro level. So be prepared for us to reach out to you all soon. But since the census data was not available at this time, we decided to create a 2019 base year model instead of 2020. And the households and population are derived from the annual growth from 2010 to 2020 national census, and then use an annualized growth or loss rate based on the increase or decrease from the 2015 to 2040 base years at the TAZ level to get to 2050.
So many of y'all were part of that process, when we went out to Oldham County. I remember, Jim will remember, it was one of the most, impressive planning exercises I've ever seen. Jim put Jim Irvin in front of a map, and he took that map and he said, you need to add 20 employees here, take 50 households here. It was impressive. So we will be re-upping that here, in the next month or so. So we will be looking for an email from myself or from Valerie or from Spencer Williams, one of us, real soon about, probably one meeting in each county is what we're thinking. Okay. And as Valerie said, basically the timing is not perfect for this, but with our new MTP, we've got to get out to the year 2050. We've got to get there one way or the other. Okay. And we don't have great 2020 census resources. And so what kind of the core assumption, as she mentioned, was taking the growth assumptions that we were approved this time several years ago, again, when we came out to Bullitt County, came out to Oldham County, and Jim put on a show for us, down at Metro, we did the same thing, expanding those out 10 more years, basically saying that growth that we assumed back in 2018, that's our starting point. And so we'll be asking you all to say, yeah, it looks pretty good over there, but you might need to take a few from there and put them over here. Okay, that's the question. Okay, so we'll be re-engaging everybody here in about a month or so, in less than a month probably.
Andy, who would be part of, when we talk about coming to the counties and doing these public meetings? Are you looking at specific folks? I mean, I'm thinking about our area. One of the growth areas that we're going to see that probably won't look like it should be is Lebanon Junction, and basically that's based on the announcement of the new Ford plant in Hardin County.
Right. So I think my suggestion and recommendation would be planning and zoning type people for certain. In Bullitt County, probably the smaller town mayors,
Right.
Okay, if they don't have staff that might have expertise in that regard. I think for the most part, last go around, we probably had anywhere from don't know, with three or four KIPTA staff there's probably at a minimum, maybe 10 people in the room, at most 15, something like that. You know, maybe there's 5 or 6 people from a county, Bull County. I remember we had in Lemon Junction, as a matter of fact, if I'm not mistaken. There's probably 10 non-KIPTA staff there, something like that anyways. And we'll go over it slow but sure, and it'll be constructive. It'll be a workshop of sorts, but these forecasts are critical to what we do. A lot of the travel forecasting, for that matter, that will translate into our downstream of that, the air quality conformity process, right? That model, that transportation travel demand model output is used as input into that air quality model that Craig Butler and our friends at APCD run for the region. So it does matter. It matters a ton for the MTP in many other ways too. So it is a critical step. It's just that we kind of have bad timing. We can't do anything about that. Right. We don't have good 2020 data, but we need 2050 data, and so here we are making the best of the situation.
Great.
So again, be looking for email from us very shortly.
Thank you, Valerie. Zach.
Hey, Zach Herzog here, KIPTA GIS staff. I'm just here to showcase some of the new high-density land use clusters we've been working with the planners and our GIS staff to create. If you look down here below, the previous clusters you'll probably recognize if you filled out any of the, if you worked with the application tool last time in the project evaluation or submitting a new project. This is just a kind of a screenshot of the previous clusters. And we used them in our project evaluation tool, similar to this slide where, you know, you drew your line, and if it interacted with one of the clusters, you got within the cluster down here, and it's equaled so many points in your evaluation. We've just updated all these clusters. We kind of used a little bit different method this time. We took Axle data, and we plugged it into the kernel density application tool that our GIS provided us with, and ran it. If you want to know more about kernel density, you can read this or look it up. It's pretty cool stuff, and it plots us out a raster, basically, of clusters or hotspots. And this, I believe, is the one from this purple right here is the medical clusters. And so we took the highest percentage of the clusters using the standard deviation symbology and exported them to a polygon. And here they are live. They're actually online right now on this map. So I'll just zoom up real quick. We have fast enough internet. Yeah, so these are the new clusters. And anyone that wants to view them, I can share them. I'll probably create a new app shortly to have them available and maybe host them on our planning portal website. But let me turn some of them off here so you can see. So the yellow is the business density. It's hard to see on the screen. They look better on my nice screen. Yeah, so business clusters, let's just go all the way down. So household clusters, we did a little bit different, and that's what Joseph's going to talk about. He worked on those. But as you can see, retail, you got Mall of St. Matthews and J-Town area. The difference between retail and business was these were like warehouses and actual businesses with high employment numbers. So you've got River Ridge up there and UPS and, of course, downtown area, and then the J-Town cluster out here. We made freight clusters of the high freight traffic areas, medical clusters, and retail clusters. And then to talk more about the household clustering, I'm going to hand it over to my colleague, Joseph Garcia.
Thank you. So for household clusters, we had to take a slightly different approach. Compared to the other metrics that we mapped, households had many more points spread out much more continuously over the 5-county area. compared to the relatively more discrete retail medical freight business. So we took a slightly different approach on this and we used what's called optimized hotspot analysis. What that allowed us to do was not only use point values for every household, but also give weight based on the population given for each household, which DataAxle provided for us. One other thing that we did a little differently in this is we ran Jefferson County separately from the outlying counties. Reason for that is Jefferson County, obviously much higher population, much more dense overall, and running it all together at the same time, we noticed that Jefferson County really dominated the cluster area, and we really didn't tell us a whole lot about the outlying counties. So we ran Jefferson County separately, and what that did for us was two things. It both refined the household clusters within Jefferson County, but it also was able to tease out some smaller but still significant household cluster areas in the outlying counties. That's all we did differently on the household clusters. Thank you.
Thank you all. All right, Nick, you were up with the Metropolitan Planning Organization dedicated funds.
Yes, thank you, Chairman. This is my regularly scheduled quarterly update on our MPO dedicated programs. I actually came to you all 2 months ago because we had a delay in January due to a lot of moving pieces in Indiana. It's about a 2-month update. Oh, oops, sorry. Oh, that's great. So just a little bit of, that would help. So in Indiana, like I've said many times, we have 4 MPO dedicated programs for which the TPC has the authority to award funds from. The 4 programs are listed on the top row. On the left-hand column, you see the amount programmed at the beginning of the fiscal year, the amount that's been obligated, and the amount that's unobligated. You can quickly notice that there is a lot of funding that is unobligated. It has been a very dicey year in terms of getting obligations done. We've had some significant project delays. We had to move some projects around. We even had to do a new mini call for projects 2 months ago where TPC awarded 2 new transit projects and 2 planning studies so that we didn't lose any funding. And all of that is, I say lose funding because there is no carryover allowed in Indiana. So if we do not obligate it, it goes back to the states in most, if not all, circumstances. The large amount of unobligated funding in the Surface Transportation Block Grant Program is all attributable to one project. It's the East Main Street project, which we're going to talk about a little bit more in New Albany. They recently, that project is, it had originally a $4 million project. The bid that came in most recently was $5 million. And so the portion that we're able to cover is in and around 2.7, and I'm going to talk to you guys about maybe giving them some additional funds as well. So we are waiting on a few projects to be obligated, about 4 in addition to those 4 that came through the new call for projects. So it is very uneasy right now. We are hoping that everything works out, and we have been in communication with all of our partners to help them. There's also been a significant impact at the state level because there are delays with their STIP at NDOT, and that has caused a ripple effect for not only our MPO but other MPOs in terms of delaying. When we do a modification, then the state has to do a modification. When we do an amendment, oftentimes the state does an amendment as well, and so that trickle-down effect that has occurred is impacting at least two projects that are currently unobligated. So more about that later. In Kentucky, in Indiana, just to be clear, the fiscal year ends at the end of June, so we are running out of time quickly here. In Kentucky, we have until September 30th. There is no rule that bars us from carrying funds over. Although we have obligation targets that you can see on the right that we are trying to hit each and every year to avoid our carryover balance growing. And so $22.6 million or so is the target we're looking to hit this year. That will make sure that we do not add to our carryover balance, and with the Transportation Alternatives Program, it's about 2.3. We have had a number of obligations. I've included a lot of that in the staff report in the meeting packet from now on, so you have that information, but I can talk a little bit about some of those here. Clarksville's Riverside Drive project, this is a reconstruction along Riverside Drive to the Ashland Park from the eastern town limit where it borders Jeffersonville. So they're adding sidewalks, elevated cycle tracks, and kind of an overall streetscaping, if you will. So they're working on a quick little preliminary engineering phase that will hopefully get them into the construction phase in 2023, and that'll be a large construction project for Indiana, $2 million at least. I mentioned the New Albany East Main Street project. These funds that were obligated $300,000 as of today, New Albany has actually rescinded that. So in Indiana, they do something called construction engineering along with construction. And so that phase of the project, they are rescinding that request to spend $300,000 on this. Just learned that in the last day or so, because they are going to apply that to the actual construction phase, not the engineering phase. So there's a lot of detail that I don't normally present, but things have been complicated. Kentucky, the Oldham County Buckner Connector project, it was obligated for construction, so congratulations there. I know they're probably excited as they can be up there in Oldham County to extend Commerce Parkway and the shared use path west from Kentucky 393 over to Mattingly Drive, or Mattingly Road. And then the U of L, the 2nd Street, 3rd Street Museum Drive improvements, these are all kind of vehicular safety, but also focused on the pedestrians, the students, the campus life over there, and the design phase of that project has kicked off. These weren't the only obligations, but just some of the, just a couple of ones that I noted. Cost increases. Since the packet went out last Wednesday, we have had 2 more cost increase requests. The first one, and most notably, is the New Albany East Main Street project. Again, we had $3 million programmed for that project. The bids have come in over $1 million more than their cost estimate, primarily due to materials cost rising, inflation, and all of that we're all dealing with. And so as a result, this project is tentative right now in terms of how it's going to proceed. They went to an April letting, and that's when they found out that $5 million price tag. They're going to re-let that project in May, and so they have asked for additional funds. We have additional funds in the program because NDOT recently made us aware that we're going to receive somewhere around between $800,000 and $900,000 in additional funding fiscal year 2022. Fiscal year 2022 is effectively ending very soon. They are only giving us until September 30th, so 5 months, 6 months, to obligate those funds. So we thought, what better way to do that than to go ahead and apply these funds to this project so we don't have any risk of losing our quote-unquote carryover 2022 funding. So let me stop there because that's a lot of information and it could be very confusing. Does anyone have any questions or comments about the New Albany situation?
I think it might be worth noting that they've committed to effectively overmatching this. This doesn't make them whole. They're gonna make an additional commitment, big additional commitment as well too.
So they have a huge skin on the game.
They do.
They do, and if that project doesn't go forward, that's $3.5 million of our federal funds that will go back to the state and not be used, and who knows how that project would be funded in the future. Probably would not. So yes, they are. That's a good point, Andy. We are giving them what we can, and they are filling in the gap, which is probably still close to $300,000 or $400,000, if not more. On the Kentucky cost increases, I think the original one that went out with the packet was the second one, the Cannons Lane, additional $400,000 for the construction phase. They're getting ready to hopefully move forward with construction of those new sidewalks on Cannons Lane. And then J-Town also had a bid. They came in almost $1 million over. So you're seeing a trend here with inflation and the markets and whatnot. And so J-Town needs an additional $960,000 federal for the construction phase of Waterston Trail. I think the best thing that I can say about all of these cost increases is these are all construction phases, and the public should be seeing this money spent, you know, actively, and hopefully these facilities are better. Does anyone have any questions about the cost increases in Kentucky? All right. And then lastly, Louisville Metro went ahead and submitted a handful of phase shift requests for phases that have been delayed. As you can see, a lot of these are construction phases. Most are probably tied in with some kind of utility delay, if not a design delay. So they're going ahead and just biting the bullet now and pushing some of these out, whereas typically sponsors wait until the end of the fiscal year to do so. So no issues here with these phase shifts. They're all good to go in terms of staff's perspective. So the action that's requested is to approve the cost increases and phase shifts request, to recommend TPC approval of the cost increases.
All right, we'll entertain a motion.
Recommend to TPC these cost increases and phase shifts.
Have a motion, is there a second?
Second.
Got a motion and a second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, that passes, thank you, Nick.
Fantastic.
And Andy, we have got the planning study.
All right, I will crack at sharing my screen here. This is going to be exactly what I presented to the TPC a couple of weeks ago. So for those that were there, apologize, but hang with us. So as I mentioned earlier, a little bit about it earlier anyways, and as you saw in an email from me probably about a month ago, what we're getting ready to do is initiate what we're calling a call for studies, making available some of the planning funding, metropolitan planning funding. You often hear it called PL funding. So those are the planning dollars that we get as an MPO via NDOT and via KYTC from Federal Highway Administration. Okay, and so those dollars can be used toward many things. They go to pay things like our staff salaries. They go to pay our operations at the MPO. They go toward purchasing data, streetlight type data, and other third-party data that we utilize. So they go for the operations. They also can be utilized and have been in the past and will be in the future to do planning studies from small scale to large scale. They certainly can be used for any and all of those. So with the new infrastructure bill, in Kentucky, we're getting, I think it's 12.5% additional in FY23 than we have in 22. That is, and that equates to, I think we're up $150,000 of these planning studies, these PL dollars in Kentucky. That's all thanks to the new infrastructure bill. In Indiana, I think the percentage is higher. I think it's around 25%, if I'm not mistaken. So we're talking another couple $100,000 there. So we've got a lot more federal money coming in of this variety, and so what we want to do is deploy that on planning studies, make it available to you all for these planning studies. Okay. So what's eligible? What can this money be used for? You know, it can't be what it can't be. Let's start there. It can't be for what's there on the bottom left. You know, it can't be for the actual projects themselves. Okay. It needs to be for a planning study that might be a corridor study, a county-wide study, a look at technology, a look at this, a look at that. Perhaps a look at some maybe it can be data collection too. A couple examples with some of the dynamic year that Nick was mentioning in Indiana. You may recall we moved some money around to New Albany and to Floyd County to take some of the money that was in the name of a project and put it into some planning studies that they're doing over there. One's a transit planning study in Floyd County, while the other is something that Larry Summers in Albany asked for, that was some State Street corridor data collection, traffic congestion type study. So it can be a lot of things. Okay, so there are a lot of, options here. We believe that, and we put in the, draft UPWP, again, that's our budgeting document that all NPOs are required to produce. They're due at the end of this month, and I will be taking it to TPC, here in a couple weeks. We believe about $225,000 is available, okay? So that's $225,000 federal, so at an 80-20 split, that might be, let's say close to $300,000 a study. I think that's conservative. I think that could inch up. It's more likely to inch up than it is to go down. Let's put it that way, okay? All right? So very important is that these studies need to get underway pretty soon or pretty early, let's say, in this upcoming fiscal year. And maybe as important as that, or more important than that, they need to be complete by the end of the upcoming fiscal year. That is, they need to be done by the end of June 2023. Okay? So, hopefully, could we work around that? Maybe, but that, for all intents and purposes, let's assume that it must be done by the end of next fiscal year. When to apply, and I'll show you how in a minute, but in that email I sent out a while ago, and this is perhaps the agenda item we should have had in March. We had we had a really important, this would be the most important thing we skipped in March by not having a TTCC meeting, but they are due next week, okay? So most of you all hopefully were made well aware of this. We announced it in TPC and via email. So they are indeed due on Monday. I've heard from many of you all and many TPC members, many communities, let's say, more generally, about this and what's eligible, what's not. Hey, I'm thinking about this. Hey, I'm thinking about that. So we do think the demand is going to be very high. We think it's going to be pretty competitive. That is, are we going to get more than $225,000 federal applied for? Yes, I think I'm working on the assumption that we'll get well more than $225,000 applied for federal. Okay, so in the application, I'll show you more in a minute. How about I just jump right into that? Let me, where's it? Okay, in your meeting packet. Okay, in your meeting packet, at the very end of the meeting packet, what you will see is some information about the process. Okay, it has a lot of the same details I just mentioned. Okay, it will have a link for you to get to apply. Okay, so again, by Monday, if you're going to apply, probably need to get into here. It has a lot of the same details. Hopefully it's not too onerous in terms of the questions we're asking. I think they're pretty straightforward. Okay, types of questions we're asking of you. How much you're asking for, supporting documentation, who can we get in touch with, those types of things. Okay. All right. So let me go back. Okay, so again, here's the kind of the informational side. This is what's in your meeting packet. What I want to show you here is beyond the schedule. It's the scoring system. This was taken to the TPC. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm not sharing that. There we are. Okay, I've got the scoring system up. This was the scoring system that wasn't approved by TPC back in March. I'll try to be brief on this, but basically we've tried to hit the mark here with keeping these planning studies in line with our goals, objectives, performance measures for our long-range planning and TIP. Okay, that's our ultimate goal. Okay, so all of the studies you see up here, all studies get up to 20 points on these first couple things. Does it meet the regional goals? Has it, is it innovation? That was one of the things on our list earlier. Try to award some points for that those sort of concepts. So you get 20 for that, and then depending on the nature of your study, the next 30 points depend on the type of project, the type of study. That is, if you're a complete streets project, you'll get 30 points based on a couple of criteria here. If it's a congestion mitigation type project, it'll be that second one. If it's just overall citywide county sub-area study, you can get some here. If it's transit, so in essence, you don't have to decide what kind of study you are. Points will decide that for you. All right, so you can get up to 30 in one of these. You don't get 20 of that one, 25 of that one. Okay, you'll just get up to 30. Okay. One of the major planning emphasis areas is that concept of equity in the work that we do here, in the planning that we do here. So we're going to award some points there. So that'll utilize the KIPTA defined environmental justice areas. So if your study hits one of those areas, that'll be an important factor. We recognize that not all communities have environmental justice areas, and so what we've tried to do is to say, just because you don't have environmental justice, that you're not going to get zero. You're not automatically a zero here. But if the project or if the study looks at an area with area of schools or seniors or zero car households, we want to recognize that, right? So we don't want because that would certain communities in our region have no environmental justice areas or virtually no environmental justice areas. So we want to be make it accessible to everybody here in this front. And then a couple more things. One thing of note, one of the things that we are going to attempt to prioritize, we talked about skin in the game. New Albany has a lot of skin in the game, is what we just talked about with their project. We're helping. What you all just recommended approval of TPC was to provide New Albany with some more funds, and they're gonna match it, and they're gonna overmatch it, if you will. So we want that to be a little bit more of a rule. We don't have enough money to do most of the things that we do here. That much is clear, right? So we're going to award an extra point or up to 6 points if you as an agency are going to put more skin in the game, right? So it's going to be an 80-20 match, just like most projects are. It has to be that. But if you commit to doing up to 50%, so up to 50%, we'll give you in essence some bonus points. So we want that skin in the game to be there, and that will allow us potentially to do more studies to spread us a little bit thinner in terms of how many we can award. Because make no mistake about it, we fully expect, again, to not have it. We're going to get more than $225,000 worth of applications. I'm extremely confident of that. So who do we say no to? The scoring is going to tell us who we say no to or say yes to. But I want us to be able to help out as many as we can. And again, if it's not this year for your community, one of the things I want to say is that, this additional funding, the additional funding from the new transportation bill, we're going to have that going forward too. So hopefully this can be a big part of what we do and get on some sort of annual cycle where we make this a bigger part of what we do. It was a decade ago or so, let's say. It's been less so in the last 5 years or so. So we want to get back in this game a little more fully, and so hopefully it can be, again, if it's not this year, hopefully next year for your all studies. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them now. You can reach out to me or other KIPTA staff. Be happy to help you guys out a little bit. And again, just important to note that those applications are indeed due on Monday the 18th.
Wendy, I think we can also use STVG for and we can. I'm envisioning
Andy?
A study of BRT that would be quite expensive, that would be way beyond what we could put into a PL project.
That's correct. Studies can be, or studies can be projects up to what, we have a threshold, don't we?
We have a threshold.
5%.
Annual allocation.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I'm good.
Okay. All right. So again, many studies, perhaps with inflation, most studies might be more than what we've got. We don't know. These things, you used to be able to do a good study for $75,000. You can't do much for $75,000 these days. So I don't know how thin we'll be able to spread this. We're also would like to be clear, to be blunt and clear with you guys, that some of those dollars are, like I said, some come from NDOT, via NDOT, some come from KYTC. So in a perfect world, either on an annual basis or at least over a series of a short time period, 2 or 3 years, we would have some amount of fairness about where those dollars are, proportional amounts going to Kentucky and the proportional amounts going to Indiana. That is something that we're going to be trying to be conscientious of, very conscientious of. I think it's a duty to do so. I think Aida had a question.
Thank you. I just was going to ask, is there a maximum amount set for a study? So basically, it would be good for us to have some kind of feel about the maximum amount that will clearly tell us if the KIPTA is going to fund 2, 3, 5 projects, how many? Because as you just made very good point, I mean, planning process became expensive, and yeah, we just don't know, for example, what kind of project would fit best for this application.
Right. I would say to that there's no maximum. I mean, we only have what we have. And again, I think it's likely that 225 number is likely to inch up a little bit, not down. So maybe we have a little bit more. That's federal, by the way. So, you know, at an 80-20 or maybe a 50-50, you know, if we get 50-50 match, that gets us up into the nearly $500,000 range. You can apply for as much as you like, but we only have what we have. You know, it will be, it's going to be tricky, and it's going to be tough to say no, because I think there is demand for this. I'm confident there's demand for a lot. And so, again, if not this time, either via the call for projects, you know, you can apply for studies in the call for projects. And then again, we hope each winter, let's say, that we will kick this process off, setting us up for the fiscal year that begins in the summer. So we'll have a rotational thing going here now that we're getting in the loop of the new infrastructure bill and with additional money. So
when could we expect the next call for applications for planning studies based on hopefully revolving funding?
I would say that let's call it the FY 2024 call for studies is likely to be in, let's say, January. Okay, so we're late to it because we didn't know the dollars amount still recently. Okay, so I want to say probably count on that happening over the winter time, and this scoring process will happen in the springtime, and then hopefully leading up to right at the beginning of the fiscal year, the notice proceed to go for these projects. So hopefully we can get a good cycle and get a good rotation going where it can be, frankly, the expectations can be met, that we know when it's coming and it can be more regular. That's our hope. That's our hope.
Thank you. That's great. I mean, it's always wonderful to have some planning funds, because without good plans, there are no good projects. Thanks.
Any other questions or comments? All right, hearing none. Is there any other business to be brought before this group?
Very quickly, I want to announce to this group, because we haven't met since February, you saw one of our new Transportation Division staff. We got Joseph Garcia as our new GIS staff. So he joined us, mid-March, if I'm not mistaken. So Joseph's working with Zach on Zach's team in the GIS group. And then also, Alex Pazorski has joined us. He's a transportation planner. He's got a wealth of expertise on the transit side. So he's a great addition to our team. He joined us, early March? Yeah, about the week before Joseph did, if I'm not mistaken. So this is their first TTCC, so it was since the last TTCC meeting. So many of you all maybe had opportunity at TPC or another time to interact with them. So I want to welcome them and feel free to reach out to them. They're both really sharp, and I encourage you all to reach out as needed to Alex and to Joseph, the whole team.
Anything else, Amy?
No, sir.
I've got one more.
Oh, sorry.
Grant opportunity, a huge one. Well, let me just mention a few. The RAISE grant, Rebuilding American Infrastructure with Sustainability and Equity. Those grant applications are due tomorrow to USDOT. Port Infrastructure Development Program grants. Those are due May 16th. And then the 2022 mega grant from USDOT, potentially up to $2.8 billion available, including the old infra program. These are all discretionary, of course. The new mega grant applications are due May 23rd. We recently updated our external grants document. Andy just pulled it up. It's on our TIP document, or on our TIP page, at the very bottom of the page. And we've added placeholders for all of the other discretionary programs that were recently posted to the USDOT website. There's not a lot of details about those ones that haven't been announced yet, but we just wanted to plug you guys in there that those are coming.
So once again, yeah, you can get there via our TIP page on our website, and encourage you, and we'll do our best to keep this up to date, and hopefully it's a good resource for everybody going forward to see what's out there, and if we can help, let us know.
All right, thanks, Nick. Thanks, Andy. All right, hearing no other business, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
And is there a second? Second. All in favor,